and we are all so delighted to be here to support your work, Natalie. I mean, I think Natalie first walked into my office. I meet a lot of constituents, and a lot of them have got great ideas, and some of them do achieve extraordinary things. Like Jack Manning Bancroft was a high school kid when he came into my office and said, "I've got this great idea for a mentoring organisation for Aboriginal students." It's like, yeah, great, let's see how we go. AIM, it's huge. The other one that, Oz Harvest, another sort of starting from small things, big things grow. But Natalie Isaacs walked into my office and said, "I've got this great idea. I want to make changes in my life. If I could get 1 million women to make the same changes, imagine the thing we could build." I was like, yeah, Natalie, okay. So she didn't come in and say, "I want 1,000 women or 10,000 women." No, let's start with 1 million women. And one of the things that I learned very quickly with Natalie is don't doubt that she is able to achieve what she sets her mind to doing. So by 2019, 1 million women was holding international festivals for climate action with sets by Midnight Oil and speeches by Jacinda Ardern. In 2020, Paul Kelly performed his new song about climate change, "Sleep Australia Sleep." But he could have easily played another classic, "From Little Things, Big Things Grow," because that is exactly what has happened with this movement. After a generation of organising, of community campaigns and education programs, of global conferences and rallies and concerts, you have broken through that magical number. Across all of the platforms, 1 million women across the world working with each other, teaching each other, motivating each other, supporting each other, fighting inch by inch, conversation by conversation to build lasting support for climate action. And a lot of organisations, I've seen a lot kind of start small, great enthusiasm at the very beginning. This one is extraordinary in the longevity it's had and the fact that it has gone on to achieve the mission it set itself. 1 million women has survived and flourished because it was founded on an essential truth. That women have untapped power with our votes, with our wallets, with our moral influence in our community. That truth, that if we could unleash this power, we could change the climate debate for good. That's what has driven this growth. This all began in May 2009. And if you can think back that far, you'll remember that Rove Live was the biggest show on Australian TV. Malcolm Turnbull was having his first go as leader of the Liberal Party. Tony Abbott was a disgruntled shadow minister. And our own Kevin Rudd's carbon pollution reduction scheme was going through the negotiation process in the Australian Federal Parliament. And for a brief, hopeful moment there, we actually thought we would get climate action then in 2009. And Malcolm Turnbull was up for it. It looked like there was this brief bipartisan opportunity then. And sadly, you all know the history of that. Most of his party room didn't agree, and we went on to have another decade of delay. We've been living with this senseless wreckage and division, what we've been calling the climate wars ever since. And I think what is particularly frustrating about this is it does not reflect what Australians think and feel. That debate in the Parliament was not a reflection of the Australian community and the hunger there is and the determination there is from Australians to act on climate change. I meet people from all walks of life all the time, and I cannot tell you how strongly most Australians feel about caring for our environment. And it doesn't matter whether you find yourself in the city or the country, in a Northcote cafe or a North Queensland pub, most Australians are sensitive to the threat of climate change. They want to recycle more effectively. They want to reduce their environmental footprint. They want governments to stop bickering, and they want sensible action in the national interest and in the interest of our planet. Woo! Woo! I think after a decade of climate wars, people are ready for a long and productive climate peace, a period of building Australia as a clean energy superpower and as a global environmental leader. So if you read this book, or if you spend 5 minutes talking to Natalie, you will know that 1 million women grew out of a deep sense of optimism. And perhaps that's why I was so attracted to this idea in the first place, because essentially I am an optimist too. In public life, you either maintain your hope or you become a cynic pretty quickly. And in my time as a Member of Parliament, I haven't seen a single problem that has been solved by despair or pessimism or cynicism or blocking. There's a really beautiful quote in this book by Cristina Figueres, the Costa Rican diplomat and driving force behind the Paris Agreement. She says, "Optimism is not soft." It's here. "Optimism is not soft, it's gritty. Every day brings dark news and no end of people tell us that the world is going to hell. To take the low road is to succumb. To take the high road is to remain constant in the face of uncertainty." Natalie calls this active optimism. I think, what did you call it, Wendy? You called it radical hope. Active optimism, I love that phrase. And in my experience, it's absolutely true. Action and optimism feed each other, they nourish each other. When we act in the world, when we gain a sense of our own power and our own potential, we start to feel hope. And when we feel hope, our ambition for future action grows too. And if we're lucky enough to share this journey with others, like the people in this room, if our actions are joined together as a movement, we discover that very special alchemy. It's called solidarity. The Labor movement's built on it. And solidarity can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. Wherever I go in this country, I see that power of active optimism. I see it in 1 million women. Or should I say, I see it in the 1,012,068 women I noticed at last count. And I see it in community land care groups who get together to restore their local environment with a well-earned cup of tea at the end as their only reward. I see it in our Indigenous Rangers program, who employ their science and their cultural expertise to help protect and manage our land and sea. I see it in farmers for climate action who use their intimacy with the soil to fight for a better future. I see it in the millions of Australians who've installed solar panels on their roof, doing their bit to reduce emissions while saving money at the same time. These people have always been out there caring for the landscape, loving nature, fighting for climate action. They've just needed a government that had their back. And, you know, when I saw those climate change bills pass through the House of Representatives last week, I can tell you it finally felt like we were starting to make progress again. And I think there is no coincidence in the fact that the Parliament is now, you see an influx of women into the Parliament. In fact, the government is now 52% female. And I don't think it's any coincidence that these seats that were traditionally regarded as safe Liberal seats have been won by smart, talented, hard-working women. So I know that the climate bill that's in the Parliament at the moment is the beginning of the fight. It's not the end of the fight, it's the beginning of making progress. We don't want to legislate ambition today only to see it extinguished tomorrow. We want to make sure that the roots of climate action go deep into our soil, that they are maintained and sustained through the years and through the decades and through the generations. As Natalie argues in this book, it's absolutely not something to be afraid of. Australia can be a renewable energy superpower with good secure jobs while we protect our precious environment here in the most beautiful country on earth. So congratulations again Natalie, on the book you're launching today, on your years of activism, because when women work together, we combine our energy and our talent. There's no problem so daunting that we can't solve it. Thank you.